Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode, we're talking about Roman Wilson, wide receiver out of Michigan. We're going to be looking at him in terms of his production profile and other sort of factors. One interesting little fact about Roman Wilson is he was ranked as the 55th player at his position by ESPN and the third best player in Hawaii at one point in his career. So, interesting little tidbit there. Looking at his offensive market share score. So if you're new to the channel, new to the stuff that I do, I use a lot of offensive market share data. So you take the raw statistics divided by the team total to give you that particular number. And then you percentile score it against their positional peers. Based on his offensive market share, he was kind of inconsistent. He had a 49 percentile receiving market share production score, 46 percentile in terms of total offensive market share, and then 73 percentile in terms of his touchdown market share score. Those numbers are not what you're looking for in terms of wide receiver prospect. They're definitely below average in all those particular numbers, except for the touchdown market share. Now moving to his efficiency scores. Efficiency scores take a look at how he ranks against positional peers in terms of like yards per touch. Touchdown percentage, which is how often he ended up in the end zone per touch. Those are what those numbers kind of look at. And based on his efficiency scores, he did really well in terms of his touchdown percentage. So when he got the ball in his hands, he got in the end zone a lot compared to other wide receivers. This also is compared to 3,710 wide receivers since 1969. But his yards per reception was not that great in the 60 percentile. Or at the very least, 60 percentile is kind of what you're looking for in terms of like Pro Bowl averages and All-Pro averages, those types of things. So in terms of his efficiency scores, he was a little inconsistent. Going to his adjusted production data, so adjusted production looks at the age of a prospect, their strength of schedule, their strength of team, to give you context for the production. Now, how productive were they for their age? How productive were they for the level of competition that they face? And how productive were they for the team that they were on? How good of a team were they on? And based on his adjusted production data, his age score is probably the biggest sort of concerning factor. He had a 50 percentile age score, but his MSA rating was in the 70 percentile, and his pass rating was in the 80 percentile. Taking a look at the wide receivers in here, if he was a little bit younger, he would be towards like the Pro Bowl averages, but he kind of fits between the Pro Bowl threshold and starter average. So he's kind of like a fringe kind of, if he was a Pro Bowler, he'd be sort of an outlier as a Pro Bowler, but he also fits right in line with most starters in terms of his adjusted production. So that's kind of an issue with him, is his adjusted production wasn't really 100% elite compared to what elite wide receivers did. And when you look at the wide receivers who tested similar to him, it's guys like Braxton Berrios, Eddie Miller, Devaris Daniels, Talman Gardner, and Tony Johnson. Not a list you would really want to be on, but it kind of is the players who kind of most tested as close as possible to him based on his data profile. Moving on to overall outlook for Roman Wilson. I would say Roman Wilson profiles as a backup to starter based on his production profile. The biggest red flag on his profile is his age, and because that affects his adjusted production tremendously, and his overall production wasn't that great in terms of his offensive market share and total offensive market share. Wilson will likely become an NFL team's number 2 or number 3 option, but he is highly unlikely to become an elite wide receiver in the NFL. So there have been a lot of interesting things that have happened in the NFL recently. I mean, if you have the prerequisite athleticism testing or you have elite athleticism, there's always a chance you could be developed into something special. But with Roman Wilson, again, based on the production data, based on everything else like that, he's more likely just to become sort of a backup rotational wide receiver based on his overall data with starter upside, but not necessarily if he became like a Pro Bowl wide receiver, it'd be an outlier. It'd be something that is outside of the norm of what usually happens at the position. So with all that stuff out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Jim Coburn. You can also follow my other stuff at Gymmetrics on Twitter. And of course, you can go to patreon.com/jcoburn to learn more about the stuff that I do as well, and also to contribute to the show, see videos early, all that kind of stuff. If you become a starter level patron on there, you will get access to a lot of videos earlier than everybody else. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.